Shalom, the Holy One, blessed be He. Welcome to the Voice of Torah, presented by Beit Yisrael International. Today we journey into Noah, Tikkun Brit Hadshah, with our hosts Abraham and Sarah. Together they'll explore the depth of covenant and renewal within the framework of Torah and the writings of our sages. Guided by the profound insights of Gaddi Efrayim, we'll uncover how Noah's sacred mission and the power of covenant serve as a divine pathway for healing and transformation across generations.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going deep this time.
Dive in deep.
Yeah, into Jewish teachings on Noah and the flood.
The flood.
But we're going way beyond just the story. You know, we're really going to try to figure out what it means for us, like you and me, like today.
Today.
We're using some really interesting notes from this Jewish Yeshua study session. It's a really fascinating mix of like straight from the Bible stuff.
Yeah.
But then also like rabbinical interpretations.
Yeah.
And even some Chassidic thought sprinkled in there.
Wow.
So it's pretty deep.
Yeah.
And you might think you know this story, you know Noah's Ark.
Right.
Animals 2 by 2.
Everybody knows the story.
But trust me, after this deep dive, you're going to see this story with like completely new. The idea of building an inner ark.
Oh, that's a good one.
So, you know, help us weather those storms, those tough times we all go through. And we're pulling this all from a text looking at Jewish Yeshua's Hatzadic message. Right?
And it's not about building an actual like physical ark, you know?
Not like Noah's Ark. No.
Yeah, like Noah's, exactly.
Yeah, it's more, think of it kind of like a spiritual blueprint, right?
Oh,
We're not talking about wood and nails here. This is about building resilience inside, like within ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I'm definitely intrigued. So what exactly is this inner ark that we're supposed to be building?
So the text uses this whole ark thing as a metaphor for the strength we all need to face the world, you know, especially when things get tough.
Yeah, yeah.
When things are uncertain.
Okay. It's that solid core, that unshakable part of you that helps you stay grounded even when everything else feels like it's falling apart.
I mean, I can already see how valuable that would be. But how do we actually build this thing? Like, what are the tools we can use?
And that's where it gets really, really interesting.
Okay.
The text links this inner ark to actually actively engaging with spiritual practices.
Okay.
Things like Torah study, mitzvot, and sincere prayer.
So it's not enough to just say, I believe. We have to actually live it out through action and through connecting with, you know, with God.
You got it. Torah study gives us wisdom and guidance, right?
Right.
Mitzvot, those actions we do, they help us put those teachings into practice.
Okay.
And prayer, that deepens our relationship with God.
Yeah.
Each of those things, in their own way, they strengthen our inner resilience, that inner ark, preparing us for whatever challenges come our way.
You know, this all reminds me of something else that the text talks about. The connection between this inner ark and the Messianic era.
Right, right. And that is super important.
Yeah.
The text basically says that the time leading up to Mashiach, it's going to be confusing. Like no clear spiritual direction, kind of like the world back in Noah's time.
Wow.
And just like that ark kept Noah and his family safe during the flood, our inner ark, our inner strength, that's going to be crucial for us to get through those uncertain times.
So are there specific teachings about the Messianic era that, you know, kind of highlight why this inner strength, this inner ark is so important?
Absolutely. Jewish teachings describe this time as, well, a time of immense upheaval.
Okay.
Where old ways of thinking and doing things, they might get shaken up.
Oh, wow.
The inner ark, it gives us that grounding, that spiritual clarity to get through these changes without losing sight of what really matters. It's like having a compass inside you when the whole world feels like it's spinning out of control.
So basically, people who are really connected to a divine purpose and have worked on building that strong inner foundation, they'll be better equipped to handle all the craziness that the Messianic era might bring.
Exactly. And it's not just about, you know, surviving. It's about thriving.
Yeah, yeah.
The inner ark allows us to face those challenges with strength, with clarity, and actually use them as opportunities to grow, to connect more deeply with the divine.
That's a powerful idea. It makes you wonder, could this whole inner ark thing apply beyond just one specific belief system? Could we all benefit from building that inner strength, regardless of, you know, our background?
That is such a good question to think about, you know? It really is.
Yeah.
What are the things you lean on when life gets tough? What helps you find that center, that inner peace, and move forward. It's really worth thinking about how each of us can cultivate that inner strength, that resilience, whatever form it takes for us.
It really is. Lies.
I love that.
Yeah. So first thing that really jumped out at me was this idea of the flood.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about water,
Right.
like literal H2O.
Not just rain.
Yeah. So what did Yeshua really mean
Oh, good.
when he was comparing,
Yeah, to the days of Noah.
those days? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a metaphor. Think of it as like this flood of spiritual change.
Okay.
And the danger is being unprepared.
Okay. So I'm with you on the metaphor.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be unprepared?
Okay, so imagine
Yeah.
you're so busy on your phone
Uh-huh.
that you completely miss a tsunami warning.
Oh.
That's the spiritual state Yeshua was talking about.
Well.
So caught up in the day-to-day
Yeah.
that we're missing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
The spiritual shifts happening all around.
That's a little scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then the source material talks about, eating, drinking, and marrying.
Yes.
And on the surface, you're like,
Yeah.
those are pretty normal things.
Pretty essential.
Yeah. Like, what's wrong with that?
What's the big deal?
Yeah.
So the sages are saying, don't focus too much on the material world without thinking about the spiritual side.
So it's not like, you can't eat, drink, or get married.
No.
It's like you got to do those things,
Yes.
but you can't only care about those things.
Exactly. It's all about prioritizing.
Spiritual growth.
Spiritual growth. Yeah.
Alongside all that,
Right.
I was thinking about it
Yeah.
what if you only ate junk food?
Oh.
It'd be really fun at first,
Oh, yeah.
but you'd crash eventually.
You would crash. You need nourishment.
Your body needs good stuff.
Yes.
Your soul needs good stuff.
That's a great analogy.
So how do we keep from
Yeah.
spiritually drowning?
Okay, so the answer is in the ark.
Okay, but I'm thinking a boat.
It's not just a boat.
Okay.
It's this really powerful symbol. Think of it like a blueprint for spiritual survival.
Ooh, I like that. Tell me more.
Okay, so the source connects the ark to Torah study
Mm-hmm.
and prayer.
Okay.
So Torah study gives you a framework for living ethically. It's helps you navigate,
Right.
all the crazy stuff in life.
The ups and downs.
Yeah, and prayer, it gives you strength and connection, especially when things are tough.
Okay.
These are your tools,
Mhm.
your spiritual survival kit.
So Korah and prayer are like the materials
Yes.
we use to build our own ark.
Exactly.
Beautiful. I love that image.
I know, it's powerful.
So speaking of building,
Yes.
the source mentions Tikkun Olam a lot,
Tikkun Olam.
and I'm not really sure what that is.
So Tikkun Olam is this core idea in Judaism.
Okay.
It means repairing the world.
Repairing the world.
But it's not just about fixing potholes.
Okay.
It's about aligning ourselves with God's will.
So we're like God's repair crew.
In a way, yeah, and it's about making the world a better place.
So it's both personal and for the world.
It is. It's holistic.
I like that.
Yeah, and get this.
Yeah.
The source connects Tikkun Olam to Mashiach ben Yosef.
Okay, now that's a connection I never would have made.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
Who is Mashiach ben Yosef?
So in Jewish tradition,
Right?
he's this precursor to the ultimate redemption.
Right.
He comes first and prepares the world
Oh,
for this new era.
interesting.
Yeah, and the source is saying
Yeah.
he uses technology.
Wait, so we're not supposed to reject technology?
No. Yeah.
It's about using it for good,
Yes.
like making the world better.
Yes, to reflect divine values.
So technology can be part of Tikkun Olam.
It can help us evolve spiritually.
Wow.
Right?
My mind is blown.
I know, it's amazing.
This is an ancient story,
Yeah,
but it has so much to say to us today.
it really does, and we've only just started
Hold on to your hats, everyone, because in part 2, we're going even deeper.
deeper.
We're going to explore this amazing connection between Noah's Ark and the Messianic era.
I can't wait.
Me neither. Okay, so we're back, and we're diving even deeper into the story of Noah. That's right, and how it connects to us
Yes.
today.
It's amazing how relevant it is.
It really is. And before the break,
Yeah.
we were talking about how Yeshua
Mm-hmm.
to the days of Noah.
Right.
And the source material says
Yeah.
it wasn't just like a casual comparison.
No, it's a big deal.
So there's like
The deeper meaning.
a deeper meaning. Yeah. What is it?
What's the connection with Noah's Ark?
Yeah. What's the connection with the Messianic era?
So the sages teach that before the Messiah comes,
Uh-huh.
there's going to be a lot of uncertainty,
Okay.
upheaval,
Like chaos.
chaos. Yeah, and it's nobody knows which way is up.
Like in Noah's time,
Exactly.
everyone was so busy
Right.
with their own lives.
Yeah.
They forgot what was important.
They lost sight of the big picture.
And the source is telling us
Mhm.
the same thing's going to happen.
Before the Messiah comes.
Yeah, so we need to be ready.
We need to be prepared.
But it's not about,
Right.
like, knowing the date, when it's going to happen.
It's not about predicting the future.
Yeah, it's about
It's about
getting ourselves ready.
being in that state of readiness.
Yeah, like building that inner arc
yes.
that we talked
Yeah.
about with Torah and Mitzvah.
Desire.
So no matter what happens,
Right.
we'll be able to handle it.
We can weather any storm.
But the source also mentions that, like,
Yeah.
even divine judgment is rooted in mercy. It's a tough concept.
I'm like struggling with that a little bit.
Yeah, judgment can be a little unsettling.
Even if it's merciful.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like sometimes we need a wake-up call.
A nudge in the right direction.
Yeah, course correction.
Okay, so it's more like
Tough love.
a doctor doing surgery.
Yeah.
It's not fun,
No,
but you need it to get better.
exactly.
Okay, so the flood
Mhm.
was like a surgery for the world.
It was a cleansing.
It got rid of everything that was bad
Yeah, wipe the slate clean.
and gave humanity a fresh start.
A reset button.
So it wasn't just punishment.
No.
It was also renewal,
Yes.
like getting ready for something new, a new era.
Like the Messianic age.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right.
I love this idea of the flood as this, like,
Yeah.
spiritual purification.
Spiritual cleansing.
Can you tell me more about that?
So in Kabbalah, water represents just loving kindness,
So you're saying that the
Yeah.
flood was actually...
an act of compassion.
Whoa.
It might seem harsh,
Right.
but it was done out of love.
Okay, so maybe God was like,
Yeah.
I love you guys,
hmm
but you need a serious intervention.
You're getting a little out of control.
Wow, and the source goes even further.
Yeah.
It says that when the Messiah comes,
Uh-huh.
it'll be like another spiritual flood.
It will.
What does that mean?
It'll be like this outpouring of wisdom,
Of wisdom.
of understanding,
Like a wave washing over the world. Exactly.
divine knowledge.
And this is where Mashiach ben Yosef comes in,
He's the bridge.
between the material and the spiritual.
Yes.
He's using all this, like, technology,
Yeah.
progress,
To help us evolve.
spiritually.
So it's about finding that balance.
Yes.
Not rejecting technology, but using it for a higher purpose.
That's exactly it.
To create a world that's aligned with,
With God's will.
with God's will.
Yeah.
This is blowing my mind.
I know. It's pretty amazing.
It's like these ancient teachings are speaking directly to us right now.
They're timeless.
This deep dive is really making me think.
Me too.
So what are some of the ways
Yeah.
that Mashiach ben Yosef is getting the world ready?
Well, one of the big ones is the ingathering of the exiles.
The ingathering of the exiles.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Have you?
What is that?
Okay, so we're back.
Back again.
And you were telling me about this
Yeah.
ingathering of the exiles. I'm
Yeah.
still a little fuzzy on what that means.
Okay, so basically it's about the Jewish people
Uh-huh.
returning to their homeland.
Okay.
Like both physically and
Okay.
spiritually.
So it's not just about going back to a place.
Yeah.
It's about reconnecting with their roots,
Exactly.
their heritage,
Your faith.
like a spiritual homecoming.
Yes, a beautiful way to put it.
Okay, and the source says
Yeah.
Mashiach ben Yosef is like a key part of this.
He is.
How does he do that?
So he's working behind the scenes,
Okay.
making things happen,
Like,
creating the right conditions,
okay.
both politically and socially.
He's like a stage manager,
Yeah, or like a master strategist
getting everything ready.
for this grand reunion.
I love it.
So it's about bringing people back to the land,
Uh-huh.
but also bringing them back to Torah.
Like inspiring them
Yes,
to live those values.
to live according to those principles.
Okay, so it's like
Yeah,
a physical and spiritual return.
it is.
Okay, this is really interesting.
Right.
It's all starting to make sense.
Yeah,
How Mashiach ben Yosef is like preparing the world.
for the Messianic age.
But the source also mentions
Yeah.
that he suffers a lot.
Yes, he does.
Why is that important?
Well, it shows us that he's not some kind of conquering hero.
Okay.
He doesn't use force.
So it's not like a military victory?
No, it's not about that.
Okay.
He suffers willingly
He does.
for humanity,
Wow.
for our redemption.
So his suffering is like a
Mhm.
sacrifice.
It is
It's like he's paving the way
Yes.
through his own pain.
for something greater.
Wow.
His suffering helps to purify the world,
Okay.
gets us ready
Right.
for Mashiach ben David.
Okay, so it's like a two-part process.
Exactly.
Two Mashiachs
different roles.
to bring about
Yeah.
like the ultimate redemption.
Right.
So Mashiach ben Yosef is like
Uh-huh.
laying the foundation,
Yes. Removing obstacles
refining us.
through his sacrifice.
Then Mashiach ben David comes.
And builds on that foundation.
and establishes this world of peace and harmony.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It's a powerful vision.
It is.
And the source says
Yeah.
this isn't something that's going to happen like way in the future.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's happening now,
it's happening now.
all around us.
What do you mean?
Look at the advancements in technology, the focus on social justice,
Uh-huh.
all the people searching for truth.
You're
We're seeing glimpses of Mashiach ben Yosef's influence everywhere.
So we don't just sit around and wait.
No.
We got to be a part of it.
Yes. Actively participate.
Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun Olam, repairing the world.
This deep dive
Yeah.
has been amazing.
It really has.
It's like, I thought I knew this story,
Right.
but it's so much deeper.
It's full of surprises.
It has so much to teach us
It does.
about ourselves,
About the world.
about where we're going.
About the future.
What do you think our listeners are taking away from all this?
It's given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
I'm sure they're feeling the same way.
I think the biggest question is,
Yeah.
what does my own arc look like?
That's the question.
What am I doing to get ready?
To face the challenges.
To navigate this world.
To stay afloat.
That's something we all need to think about.
It is.
This deep dive
Yeah.
is just the beginning.
There's so much more to explore. Okay, so we've got a collection of some pretty intense Jewish texts here.
Yeah, especially these excerpts from Noah, Tikkun, Brit Hadshah, Gaddi, Efrayim notes. It's a lot to unpack.
Definitely. But that's what we're here for, right? To dive deep into this concept of tikkun.
Spiritual rectification.
Right, tikkun, and how it relates to some pretty heavy sins.
Yeah, no kidding. And drawing from some weighty sources to Talmud, Zohar, Midrash, you name it.
It's fascinating, though, isn't it, how these texts don't shy away from the darker side of things. They paint a picture of a world, well, kind of spiraling out of control.
Yeah, a world that some believe mirrors our own times. It's a bit unsettling when you think about it.
It is. And this idea that the end of days will be like the time of Noah, it's a powerful image.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting. Matthew 24:37 actually says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man.
Whoa. Okay, that verse really makes you stop and think. So what were these sins? The ones that were so severe that they led to, well, a divine reset, a flood.
Right. Well, the texts focus on 5 in particular: idolatry, murder, sorcery, sexual immorality, and theft.
5. And they're always grouped together, right?
Exactly. It's like they're all connected somehow, all symptoms of some larger spiritual imbalance.
Like pieces of a puzzle. So let's try to put this puzzle together. Let's start with idolatry. What I found really interesting about that section was that it goes way beyond just like bowing down to statues.
Oh, yeah, it's so much more than that. It's about anything that replaces God at the center of your life, really.
Misplaced devotion, giving your allegiance to something else.
Exactly, shifting your focus away from the divine.
And it's amazing how these ancient texts speak to our modern world. I mean, think about it. Our obsession with technology, with social media, with getting likes and followers. Could those be considered modern forms of idolatry?
That's a good question. Are we worshiping these things instead of, what really matters?
Right. It's like we're bowing down to our phones instead of, well, you get the idea.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
So let's move on to murder. Obviously, it's a terrible act, but these texts go beyond just condemning it. They talk about how the act itself can actually empower demonic forces.
Yeah, they do. The idea is that blood contains a spiritual life force, and misusing it disrupts the balance between, the physical and spiritual realms.
Okay, that's a powerful and...
The idea that violence, especially on a massive scale, can have profound spiritual consequences that extend far beyond, well, the physical realm.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about sorcery. Now, these texts present it as more than just tricks and illusions, right? They're describing it as tapping into this spiritual realm called Yetzirah.
Right, the realm of angels, of powerful forces.
And they're saying that it's forbidden to tap into that realm, at least in the ways that they're describing.
Yeah, it's like trying to control forces you barely understand, forces that humans were never meant to manipulate.
It's like playing with fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the text suggests that, well, the generation of the flood, they believe they could actually defy God's judgment through their mastery of these forces.
And we know how that turned out.
Right. Their arrogance, their hubris, ultimately led to their downfall.
It kind of reminds me of how some people today believe that technology can solve all our problems, even cheat death. Are we making the same mistake as those in Noah's time? just with different tools.
It's a question worth asking. Are we repeating the same patterns of hubris and self-reliance, believing that we can control everything, even the forces of life and death?
It's a sobering thought, for sure. So let's move on to sexual immorality. The texts are, well, pretty straightforward about it.
Yeah, they emphasize a strong connection between certain acts and, well, demonic influence.
They suggest that these acts create spiritual impurities, opening pathways to negative spiritual forces.
Yeah, and what's really disturbing is how they draw parallels to the present day.
Right, like pointing to the rise of online platforms dedicated to things like, well, it's hard to even say it, bestiality, incest, pedophilia.
It's definitely unsettling. It reflects a kind of moral decay that, well, it echoes what's described in Noah's time.
Yeah, it really makes you think, are we becoming desensitized to things that were once considered taboo? Things that these texts warn against? And if so, what are the spiritual implications?
Big questions. Important ones, though.
Now let's talk about theft. Compared to some of the other sins we've discussed, it might seem, I don't know, less severe.
You think so, right?
But these texts actually emphasize its surprising severity.
They claim that theft was actually the final straw for Noah's generation, like the sin that tipped the scales towards judgment.
Wow. So what makes it so significant then?
Well, the texts highlight this idea that theft represents a breakdown of trust within society.
Interesting.
It prioritizes self-interest above everything else. It disregards divine boundaries, and the well-being of others. Like the Talmud says, it is like the case of a basketful that is full of iniquities. Which of these discredits the basketful? Robbery.
So it's not just about stealing material possessions. It's about violating the core principles of a just and moral society.
Right. And the Midrash takes it even further, stating, to rob a fellow man, even of the value of a peruta, a tiny amount, is like taking away his life.
Wow. So even though it might appear to be a more mundane sin, it actually points to a much deeper spiritual problem.
Exactly. Lack of respect for others, for God's laws, for the very fabric that holds society together.
Powerful stuff. We've spent a lot of time exploring these 5 sins, the darkness they represent. But, it's not all doom and gloom, right? These texts also talk about tikkun, the potential for spiritual repair, for realignment.
Absolutely. That's a crucial point. It's not just about judgment. It's about the possibility of transformation, of redemption.
So it's not just about punishment. It's about finding a way back to a state of spiritual wholeness.
Exactly. And that's where this concept of tikkun Brit Hadshah, the new covenant, comes in. It emphasizes that we can rectify these sins through repentance, through righteous actions, and a return to God's will.
It's like a spiritual reset button, a chance to change course and realign ourselves with, well, a higher purpose.
That's a good way to put it. And you know what? We should probably dive into this idea of tikkun a little deeper in our next segment.
Definitely. This is fascinating stuff.
So we've been exploring these 5 pretty heavy sins, the ones that keep popping up throughout history. But now I think it's time to shift gears a bit and dive deeper into this whole idea of tikkun. It's a concept that really offers hope, like a path forward.
Oh, absolutely. Tikkun isn't about just sitting around waiting for like a divine intervention. It's about actively taking part in repairing that spiritual damage, both within ourselves and the world around us,
So it's more of a proactive approach to spiritual growth, constantly working towards aligning ourselves with God's will.
Exactly. It's a continuous process of returning to that state of balance, of harmony.
Okay, I'm starting to get a better handle on this, but how do we actually apply tikkun to those specific sins we've been talking about? Like, let's start with idolatry. End of days will mirror the time of Noah. It suggests this, similar level of spiritual decay, and the need for a powerful corrective force. But it's not just about judgment. It's about renewal, about the restoration of balance. And that ultimately paves the way for a new era.
It's like one of those intense storms that clears the air and makes way for a fresh start, but on like a cosmic scale. The Messianic age is often described as this time of peace, justice, and spiritual awakening. So is tikkun a prerequisite for that kind of transformation? Do we need to engage in this process of spiritual repair, both individually and as a society, to actually usher in that new era?
That's a really interesting question. And it's one that these texts wrestle with in some pretty fascinating ways. Some passages suggest that the Messianic age can only arrive once, a certain level of tikkun has been achieved. Others emphasize that the Messianic era itself will be a time of intense spiritual transformation, a period where that work of tikkun is accelerated amplified.
So it's like we're all working towards this collective goal, individually and together, creating the conditions necessary for a more enlightened and more spiritually awakened world.
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. And the text seemed to suggest that the stakes are pretty high. The choices we make, the actions we take, they all contribute to that overall balance. We can either tip the scales towards chaos or towards harmony.
It's actually pretty empowering to think that we're not just passive observers in all of this. We're active participants. We're shaping the future, both our own and that of humanity as a whole. But wow, it also makes you realize the weight of responsibility that comes with that.
It does. And that's why these texts are so valuable. They offer guidance on how to navigate these complex times.
Yeah.
They teach us how to resist those negative influences, how to make choices that align with our deepest values and with God's will, and how to actively contribute to that work of Tikkun.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways our listeners can apply to their own lives? What can they do to contribute to this larger process of spiritual repair?
Well, it all starts with cultivating a deep and personal relationship with God. That's the foundation of Tikkun. Seeking guidance through prayer, studying sacred texts, engaging in those spiritual practices that nurture that connection.
And recognizing that we're all interconnected, right? That our actions, no matter how small they may seem, have a ripple effect. They impact not only ourselves, but also those around us and the world at large.
Exactly. It's about living with intention, making choices that are in harmony with God's will. And remembering that Tikkun isn't a destination, it's a journey, a process of continual growth and refinement.
So not about striving for some impossible standard of perfection, but about embracing the challenges of life as opportunities for growth, for transformation, learning from our mistakes and using them to, well, become better versions of ourselves.
That's beautifully put. And it's so important to remember that we don't have to do this alone. Building a strong spiritual community, surrounding ourselves with people who support our growth, who challenge us to be our best selves, that's crucial.
It's like having a team of fellow deep divers, all navigating those depths together, sharing insights, offering support, celebrating each other's victories along the way.
I like that. It's a great image. And ultimately, I think these texts encourage us to face life with this sense of hope and optimism, even in the midst of darkness and uncertainty. Tikkun reminds us that even within brokenness, there's always that potential for healing, for renewal, for a brighter future. And that's a message worth holding on to.
Deep divers, we've reached the end of our exploration for today. We've covered some challenging concepts and hopefully sparked some new insights, some new questions for you to ponder.
We encourage you to keep exploring these ideas, seek further knowledge, and engage in that ongoing process of Tikkun, both in your own lives and in the world around you.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.